All right, all right. We want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to our Sunday Circle, and we want to thank Brother Haki Ammi on being one of our presenters today. And we first of all want to give thanks to the Creator for this wonderful day. This is a special addition to our Sunday Circle, and we want to give thanks to the Creator for allowing Brother Haki Ami to um, bless us with his knowledge and his information, and hopefully and prayerfully, you can receive something outstanding and informative from this particular Sunday Circle uh, program that we have every first of the month. So we want to just thank you, brother, for coming on. Again, we have Dr. Kristal Owens, just blessing us always with organizing and creating new platforms for us to grow and to learn. And so we just thank you deeply, and thank the Creator for your blessing. So right now, without further ado, we're going to first of all do a little prayer and meditation, and then we're going to introduce Brother um, Haki. Um, he is new to our Sunday Circle, and before he gets going into his full uh, talk, we want him to give us kind of a background of what he's doing and what he's been doing, and then he can go into his topic for today. So let's give thanks to the Creator for this wonderful opportunity, and and just bless us with the information and allow us to be able to take this information and sync it with our other knowledge that we're aware of and familiar with, and just continue to grow spiritually, mentally, and physically. So let us just bow our heads and just give thanks to the Creator, divine God, our divine blessing, ultimate universal God for us. We thank you for this opportunity. We are thankful for those who have gathered and will gather to hear this wonderful lecture we're here today. And we just thank you for the blessing us with the presence of Dr. Our brother Haki Ami. And we just want to give thanks for this opportunity to continue to grow and learn. So right now, Divine Source, the Creator, we just give thanks. We want to take this time just to allow our spirits to be in tune with this information, be in tune with the universe, be in tune with the lecture, the information, but be in tune with each other. And so this information may grow wide and far, and that we may be able to continue to uplift and bless those who come into this circle. So let's just take a time, just a moment, just to give thanks internally, and let the Creator bless us for our own intentions, our own needs, to love, to receive love, to understand that we are part of the I am, and we are God's loving, chosen people. And in us, around us, and for us, wherever the God force is, there's no imperfection. We're thankful and grateful for this day. Bless us indeed. Increase our territory. Right here, right now, Divine Source, and those who are with us and for us, look at the glow on our face, the smile on our lips, the gleam in our eyes, the energy that we have. Let it grow and move forward in a very positive and loving way. So we give thanks for this wonderful day. We bless those who are not here or will be here to hear this. We want to pray for all those around us, our family members, our friends, and let's continue to grow in spirit and in truth. So let this moment, let us be in tune with the information. Once we leave here today, we'll have more information to pass on for the liberation, for not only our spirits, but for our people in a divine way. Let us take a moment to continue to just be in tune and be involved mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Let us give thanks for this day. Amen, amen, and amen. Thank you. So without further ado, we have brother our guest Haki Ammi. And before we move on, anything you want to say, Kristal?
Well, the brother been on his journey for quite some time, and definitely in the metropolitan area of DC, but I'm sure elsewhere. Definitely he's affiliated uh, with Les Brown, and I believe it's George Frazier as well, and he's done you know a lot of work in terms of writing, speaking, and networking in the community. So we're just happy to have him as a speaker and hope that we can have him at another time once we get things figured out technology wise. So this is good. Yeah.
So, brother, we have at least about an hour. So bless us with your presence and thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a little background of what you do, and then continue on.
Well, thank you, and thank you again to the Empowerment Center, as well as you, Dr. Kristal Owens and Brother Usher Moses. It's been a great opportunity to meet Brother Moses, and knowing you, Dr. Kristal, over the years that you've been consistent with, serving the community, and I've always admired your work, of course, and definitely, we as a people must, of course, understand who we are and whose we are and where we're going. For those that may not know me, I've been in the Baltimore area, of course, over the years officially, but Baltimore is just where I've been born and raised. I did live in the Prince George's County area for some time over the past few years, but Baltimore is my base and home. But of course, being a conscious Black man and a conscious African, I'm always striving to experience life and experience our brothers and sisters wherever they are. And I've found myself closer in the DC, Prince George's County cultural conscious environments over the years. But I gave myself the title, the Success Scholar, over the years, and I have a best-selling book as well. That's what Sister Kristal was saying, my inspirational, motivational book with international speaker Les Brown and Dr. George C. Frazier. Not only did we do a book together, I'm also in a film with both of them. Which one am I? Black Friday 2, I think. Yeah, Black Friday Part 2. So we did that. And I did some interviews with Les Brown's both his children. I did that some years ago. And I spoke on, when Les Brown came to Morgan State, I spoke there a few years ago. But I've also been in several different television shows. Well, yeah, like one or two, and some films and TV series. So over the time, I've attempted to, just really branch off into understanding how to get in front of our people and in front of vast amounts of people to deliver a conscious message. So, but I'm also active politically in the city of Baltimore, and I'll share more about that. But uh, in 2018, I ran for an office. It's called the Democratic State Central Committee. So I won that in 2018. So it's coming up on 4 years with that. As well, I'm on the board of the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus Foundation, which is a nonprofit in the state of Maryland under the Black legislators. But so, just with my book and just being a conscious brother, I've been speaking a lot over the past few years in many different venues, and I consider myself centered, where I center myself in terms of Black people wherever they are, and I attempt to understand that yes, we have these differences, but there are a lot of similarities that we have, and we have to find out how can we be a true healer within our community and a true warrior as well, because understandably there are many different levels of attacks that we are under. So, but growing up and just to kind of take it back here in Baltimore, I always share the story. I grew up kind of regular or just average, on many levels. And I always quote Dr. Frazier. He says, we don't want people to be average because as a Black man in America, if you are average, you may end up in jail. You cannot afford to be average in today's society. And so, understanding, for instance, that I did not know, for instance, that I was being average, that's where that, lack of consciousness, lack of culture comes in, where you don't know how well you're doing or if you're just, following behind many different established orders, shall I say. So I've attempted to overcome that, but, the standard was just to do enough to get by. But, fortunately, I, had some decent enough parents where, I was able to graduate, and I knew that I needed to get away from the city of Baltimore. So I left and went into the Navy, and I didn't do it because I was just so patriotic. It was more of an economic necessity or just lack of awareness of what other opportunities were out there. But I knew that I assumed that I wanted to do something constructive with my life. But it was just, a form of me just attempting to create some solace within myself to find myself and discover who I actually was. And I'll say that, sort of created like me being isolated and I was becoming very conscious during that time. And so I didn't just go in the military and just say, I'm just going to be programmed. I educated myself. And so from the time I went in like at 19. So from age 19 to like 30, I read 100 books a year for 11 years on a broad and diverse amount of topics, just attempting to explore and understand exactly who I am and who we are as a people. And most of my studies came from a place of rage. And actually, that was one of the earlier books that I read called Black Rage. I believe it's a psychologist, sociologist, something of that sort. And, it discussed that Black people have this inner rage. And that rage demonstrates itself in many different areas of our life. So understanding that, I had to dissect, okay, what has happened to me, but also where I'm actually going and how do I use that to first heal thyself, and of course, how do I heal others, but also to empower myself? How do I be the definition of a real, true man in this society? So So after, a few years of military, I didn't stay all my life. I, did like 5.5 years and came out, and I attempted to do various types of business endeavors, got involved in various direct sale operations. And, I explored, I got a lot of unique training from, these different businesses. And, but ultimately many, sort of don't fit the model for Blackness. And I had to understand how that impacted me. But ultimately, I learned a few things, and that is, that we as Black people, we need to, in this society, learn how to sell. We need to create products in this society based upon our unique cultural experiences, our unique cultural paradigms, and to uh, look at the global order of trade within this society. And so I did several different businesses, and ultimately I realized I need to go back into the labor market, the job market, if you will. So I joined the city fire service, Baltimore City, and I'm still actually there. I just went over 17 years, and I saw a lot of pain and poverty, which inspired me first and foremost from a holistic perspective to look at diet, nutrition, what are we doing, how we've been conditioned, as well as, structurally, economically positioned to eat the most inferior foods on the planet. So understanding that, and I had to understand the dynamics of poverty and health. And I inspired myself. I said, okay, well, what do we have to do first and foremost for ourselves? We have to feed ourselves, but also how do we solve some of these issues that are happening with our community? And so I began to think about, uh, just how, of course, the levels of miseducation as well as our self-hatred that we experience, that causes us to not believe within ourselves. And this goes back to some of the training that I have with Les Brown. Of course, he's an inspirational leader, but I also come from that conscious African-centered psychologist, the Amos Wilson's, the Naeem Akbar, the Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's, to understand the deep subconscious, shall I say, how we have been defined and our ideas have been controlled by our oppressor, right? And I have an article that's coming out, and it really speaks to this. It's going to be in the National Black Unity newspaper, and it's titled "Consciousness, Culture, Capital, and Character." And these are what I call the 4 pillars of the foundation for what I believe we have to establish. And one more, I haven't added that, but community. These are some of the foundations that we have to have discussions around. So, understanding the uniqueness of consciousness, right, within society. And interesting, I'm going to talk about, and you see, for those that are at home, you see the background of South Africa, where I'll be traveling next year. And not next year, actually in November, we will be traveling to South Africa, and we will have actually a we will have a I'm sorry, we we will have Steve Biko, and many people know Steve Biko from the Black Consciousness Movement. So I'm inspired that we're going to have Dr. Mamthela Mpela, if I haven't pronounced the name right, but I'm sorry. But she's the late wife of Steve Biko, so she's going to be there. But we have to look at that as a people, the Black consciousness movements throughout our society, but also the cultural movements that we've had. and understanding. And I have this book in front of me. I always do a show and tell, and I'm gonna show my book, of course. But this is Brother Imwali Mubariti's book, and he talks about Iwa, and it's a warrior's character, and we have to define, what our warriors actually are, as well as the character, and that's essential. In our late uh, ancestor, Dr. Patricia Newton, I spoke at her going away service, her transition uh, ceremony several months ago. I'm sorry, no, it's actually we just went over a year that Nana, Dr. Patricia Newton transitioned. And I recall having an interview with her, and she said, it doesn't matter how many times we visit Africa, I'm paraphrasing, how many times we visit Africa, how many name changes, how many dashikis and clothes we wear. If we are not protecting our children, everything is for naught. So my foundation and understanding is that, everything has to be practical. When we talk about culture, it has to be practical. Amos Wilson elaborated on this. He said, he paraphrasing again, but he spoke about culture in the context that many of us, we attempt to go back and grab. And yes, we should. There are many aspects of African culture that we should grab and hold on to, the whole Sankofa analogy. But understandably, culture is not stagnant, right? We're going to have to redefine culture in best practices, and not everything, for instance, that's going on right now on the continent is the best for us. And so I do consider myself a Pan-Africanist, and I do believe that we ultimately have to look at the idea of repatriation. And I've been blessed last year first to go to Tanzania. I know Sister Kristal, Dr. Kristal, I know I didn't tell you that. I know you said you went to Zambia or Zambia, right, and Kenya as well, and South Africa. So it's interesting that you mentioned. So I'm gonna talk to you about South Africa too, a little after this. But we have to look at this consciousness, culture, capital, and character very uniquely. And I know sometimes when I talk about finances, and it's sometimes people, you're talking capitalism, and I'm just like, no, we're talking survival, we're talking resource gathering. This is warfare. This is acquiring the resources that we need in order to support our communities, right? So ultimately, that's where foundationally what we're going to have to do. So, and I have a few more things, but if any of you wanted to, chime in, of course, or anything, but I had a few more things to go over. I know we said we had about an hour, but yeah. So as I mentioned, I made a decision to think broader over the years, which took me to Tanzania. Of course, many people, already assume, like Dr. Kristal, as we spoke earlier, I mentioned Ghana, and I was like, well, no, I haven't been to Ghana thus far. I am thinking about it, towards the end of this year. But, ultimately, I felt that many of our scholars certainly have done a significant job with Ghana, as well as as with Kemet as well over the years. And so, I just thought, okay, well, there are other areas that we should or could attempt to penetrate. So I will, one of the things that I wanted, and this is something that I learned from, some of my diverse reading, in terms of goals that we should have. And I try to have a mature, sophisticated organizational analysis in terms of how we maneuver and how we proceed in this world. So I designed, well, I'm not going to say I designed it, but I just draw this little chart, and I got this from, I believe it's the 7 Habits book that I read some years ago, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the parts that it had was, in terms of managing your life, it said something like priority, what's important, not a priority, not important, priority, not important. I'm sorry, let me go for, hold on. Priority, important, priority, not important, not a priority, important, but not a priority and not important. We need to get to the areas in our life where some of this not priority and not importance, those things have to be eliminated, right, within our existence in terms of how we proceed, how we manage ourselves. So I look at some of this from a nation building perspective in terms of how I organize the goals that we have. And many people, talk about the SMART goals. That's another management. The simple, measurable, achievable, relevant, and the time sensitiveness of your goals. So I would just say that many of these things have to be organized. But I'll just take a quick break and open with that. And I have a few more things that I could, just elaborate on if you all had any questions. I like questions too. And if anybody had any comments, if any lookers can post questions, we would love to see them as well. But if, I like a back and forth. And shout out to Sister Jennifer, my aunt. Thank you, Sister Jennifer. And of course, I had to say greetings to you. So, and thank you, Brother Usher and Dr. Kristal.
Yes, brother. You talked about your book. Can you kind of talk about your book again? Can you pull it up?
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and definitely I didn't want to, of course. So this is our book that I co-authored with Les Brown and Dr. George C. Frazier. And Dr. Frazier, interesting, he was just in town at what's called the President's Roundtable event in Baltimore. So George Frazier, for those who may not know, he has this power networking conference, and probably 7, 8 years ago, I went to Dallas where Dr. Frazier was, doing this conference. And one thing I always read, this is one thing I always attempted to do, and this is from the Think and Grow Rich philosophy, for those that have read that. And one interesting thing about the Think and Grow Rich, Dr. Joe L. Dudley of Dudley's Hair Care Products, he read that book 300 times. Now, this is Dudley Hair Care Products, and where is he? In North Carolina, Kernersville, North Carolina. But so Dr. Frazier has this Power Network conference. It's very dynamic. I know Sister Jennifer attended some years ago at the Gaylord, but so one of the things I learned is every organization, whatever you are part of, you have to learn from the people at the top, right? So I went there I was ready. I said, I knew his background from being a part of the Mata Network, which is a Black channel of distribution. I knew him from his book Success Runs in Our Race, and many other cultural nationalists look up to Dr. George Frazier, and the economic nationalists look up to his work. And so I knew that he spoke about the Chancellor Williams and Dr. John Henry Clark and Amos Wilson on many of his speeches. So I was like, all right, he can, kind of, I looked at it as an opportunity to expand my brand and my network into a larger audience that, generally speaking, most people wouldn't suspect that I would necessarily be affiliated with, if you will, or people don't know the depth of my area of studies or interests, right? But again, when you read 100 books a year for 11 years on many different topics, you're gonna have many different interests, and so me being a part of this book, it sort of enhanced my brand, but it's an anthology, if you will, of many different amazing authors, and it's really taken me all across this country, actually, on many different opportunities. So I'm looking forward to just growing that and continuing to build upon that legacy of what both of these gentlemen have laid a foundation for me. So this is the book, and I certainly definitely have copies of that on my website, successscholarhaki.com, successscholarhaki.com. So thank you.
Chris, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
All right, Jennifer.
Brother Haki, based upon your recent travels to Tanzania and other places, how do you leverage your experience in terms of leadership and bring that back to Baltimore City? You look at the education that's happening in Baltimore City, the lack of education, and the lack of opportunities for Black males and the Black community as a whole. And, when we go global, because we say, think, locally,
Local,
nationally, until
global,
you get
yes,
to global. But how do you
right,
leverage your experiences in a way that you can bring it back to, an area like Baltimore where you're from, and share that knowledge, that wisdom, and that leadership? Because what you're speaking on is leadership, and how young people can become leaders and kind of change the game for themselves early on. Because you spoke about your experiences being in the military and how that shaped
right,
something and made you want to do a little bit more, and then educating yourself, self-educating by reading. How do you get, that type of material in the hands of some of the educational people in Baltimore, so they could create some type of leadership program for young males,
right.
and have, maybe do trips for schools and youth organizations to Africa for them to learn global economics and, learn, leadership.
Yes, and thank you, thank you. That's a good question, and I have an amazing team, here in the Baltimore area. But interestingly, recently, I don't know if I mentioned to you, sister, we had what's called an Underground Railroad excursion, where it was some young people from Baltimore and Cleveland, Ohio, to the Eastern Shore part of Maryland, and then to the Benjamin Banneker Museum. What's interesting is that, who was I listening to? I was listening to Dr. Sabi, and he mentioned Benjamin Banneker. I was like, wow, that's really interesting, and how many people even here do. I mean, it's like literally 15 minutes away from me, the Benjamin Banneker Museum. Many people don't recognize the legacy. I'm sure people in D.C., of course, are aware of Benjamin Banneker and the history of how he built D.C. But that's one aspect of how I continue to reach out, and of course the marketing of books, I don't just market my book. Of course, I believe that there are a significant amount of conscious business and holistic health material that need to get into people's hands. But this year, when we went to Tanzania in June, we laid the foundation to create a documentary on the Bagamoyo, this what we call the Swahili Coast slave trade. Many people know, what happened in Ghana and the Goree Island and Senegal and the western part of Africa, but many do not know what happened in Tanzania and the Zanzibar area. So I think that bringing that story out in a more significant way, that's one of the things I want to share with the world. But so I sort of have a dual understanding and appreciation, although we do live here, of course. So I know I have to be a Black man and be an example to many of my young brothers who, for whatever reason, are caught up in the system or caught up in this matrix of America. So, we have to plant those seeds with them. So, just me being engaged and being like on the front line with different organizations and positioning myself to have something to offer them, of course, because ultimately, people want opportunities. They want to, people think they want to fulfill the American dream of some level. So we have to create, opportunities for individuals to develop what I call 21st century skills. And that's kind of like the career development coming out of me, but also understanding, these soft skills, because, people can get all kind of credentials and all kind of accolades, but if they are living, unconscious, uncultured life, like, what are we truly teaching? So this is where that holistic, foundational teachings comes in that, I've been exposed to understand how do you make men, and how do you make women, and how do you create family development, re-Africanization, and nation building. So, and shout out to the Kotos out of DC for, teaching me some of those things. Right.
Hey, Kristal, you have any questions?
Well, for me, it's you're talking about Baltimore, and there are, other issues that are being addressed in the public school system. They're addressing the academics, but when you are dealing with the souls and the hearts and minds of people, it's more than just ABCs. And I really think that there has to be a reform in public education, particularly in Baltimore, as well as in Maryland and DC. When you have a 50% graduation rate in Baltimore, 79% in the Prince George's County area, and I believe similarly in DC, we're really at a real precipice for change. And that means that community leaders like yourself, we need practitioners such as Usher and Jennifer, one a social worker and the other one in terms of nutrition. We have to address the whole person. And there's something lacking there. And it has to be a community, neighborhood involvement. It just can't be the parent. Oftentimes the parent is checked out because they have dealt with educational trauma themselves, where they found themselves failing and finding that they were traumatized because of their lack of achievement or acceptance in that environment. There has to be an overhaul in this thing we call education. And I believe that it has to do with communities that you're a part of, getting involved and taking part in education, whether it's a Afrocentric school, home-based school setting, other things beyond than a militarized prison-like environment that we call a school system. And I know that for some that's a shock to say that, but when you are being checked in like you're going into a secure environment such as the prison system, there's something wrong here. There has to be a home away from home, and that home should be the school system providing a home when they are away from their real home. But I just wanted to just get your idea of what could be some of the answers. And what we have is an educational drought that we're dealing with right now.
Well, Absolutely. I think that we have to create culturally competent curriculum that teach to the direct needs of the people within um, these oppressed communities. And this is where, I think uh, what is happening, and this is where I had to like sort of some years ago, I attempted to create basically it started out as a store, and this was on like one of the most shall I say depressed communities. It was between the most economically challenged, shall I say, communities in the city, and rampant with drugs and street violence type of things. And there were many challenges that I had to realize that I couldn't do certain things by myself, right? So I was outpowered, out resourced, and you have to do a good size up of what your power is and what your influence is. And also with that, I knew that it would be wise for me to be able to find and spot leaders, younger leaders, because I'm not, and we're not getting younger. So my strategic analysis, and this could be good for many practitioners or teachers that are out here, ultimately there may not be this wide net type of scenario where we're gonna absolutely, you know, wrap everybody up and take everybody with us somewhere. But I think that with our wisdom, we can spot the talented individuals, the leaders, the alpha leaders, male and female, that can influence culture, that can influence the consciousness, right? And because ultimately, many, for instance, they may listen to us on many different levels, but they're listening to their peers. And Jawanza Kunjufu, and I love Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu's work over the years, and I've read just about all of his books, and I've sold many of his books to dozens of parents and teachers, and along with Amos Wilson's books over the years. And ultimately, you begin to feel like what like are people getting this type of knowledge, right? Are people like paying attention? So for me, it's like what me reading all these books, and I'm like, why aren't people even interested in learning, right? Why aren't people interested in learning? So okay. We have to go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. I had the blessing of working in Baltimore for a number of years. I was associate minister at Northwood Apple United Methodist Church.
Okay.
And Kristal, knows my sojourn there, and we were. It's a brother named Dr. Gray, Cecil Gray.
Yes. Oh, he's beautiful. Yes. I know Dr. Gray. Yes, he's done some tremendous work, and it's sad what happened to him. I mean, if you want to speak to that, I mean, are you familiar? I mean, I'm sure.
I mean, I know it personally. I know it quite well. I don't want to get into that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I just want to say that I'm connected. Matter of fact, we had a rites of passage program.
Yes.
Back in 2000, we got a grant from the Black. It's called the Black Organization, something to that effect. And we got a grant, and as a result of that grant, he was able to get some money to start this charter school.
Right.
And so, but the rites of passage piece, I think, is a critical piece. The charter school was very critical. Yes. And And I think we talked about curriculum.
Thank you.
We need a curriculum that's going to really help our young brothers and sisters really begin to understand thyself and learn and love thyself, and
Agreed.
get into a level of vocation that's going to mean something for them and the community. And right now, um, there's a lot of things that are impacting the consciousness of our youth,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
so it's a struggle trying to get some footage to make them a lot more successful. And it's been like that probably now in Baltimore for the last 50 years.
mm-hmm.
I know Baltimore used to have a thriving uh, economic industry when it comes to factories and stuff like that. And when you drive
Right.
around, and I've driven around almost every part of Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
they had a thriving economic base. But then when the factories moved out, it dried up a lot of the economic support in the Baltimore community. And
Right.
after that, you can't have a lot of people working at universities or working at McDonald's. They need those factories, and I'm not sure if those ever coming back
Mm-hmm.
to Baltimore. So it's got to be another. It's got to be a movement like they had in Alabama, where people in Alabama moved to Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
um, where they can go somewhere and begin to create another constructive, positive lifestyle. Because right now, I even have property in Baltimore,
Okay.
and I had two properties, and um, right now is an enigma wrapped up in a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but can it be done? I really believe it, but at the same time, uh, there's got to be some kind of economic educational movement in Baltimore that's different than what they've done over the past 50 years. So I
Mm.
want to put that out there.
No, that's a good point, and and that's where I mean, I was certainly away, and I did meet with Dr. Gray some years ago, and when his partner used to be on a radio show, I would call in a few times, but the elder senior Queen Mother there. But I appreciate you mentioning the rites of passage programs, and I didn't go through a rites earlier, but certainly a little later on when I began to come to DC with the Nation House. I was able to see, just what a full community, a conscious cultural community that had both male and female rites of passage programs, how they actually worked. And so some years ago, uh, I used to attend when there's I believe the Coalition of National Rites of Passage organizations, and brother Durrell, he transitioned, but they used to have the conferences at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum some years ago, and that's ultimately organizational logistical type of analysis of knowing programming, curriculum design, and having the quality people to manage this. And this is where, for instance, and this is what, I desire to build upon, for instance, with the Underground Railroad excursion, taking the young people to the Eastern Shore, where my family is actually from, the Eastern Shore part of Maryland, where actually they just did a Frederick Douglass mural, so they're, having and teaching that legacy of the Harriet Tubmans and Frederick Douglass, and what Frederick Douglass had to go through. Hopefully, they can see that their struggles, or how they are experiencing life, is could was worse at particular times. But I also believe that, and I'll just let you add on. There was a documentary. I don't know, can't recall if it was a series about the Baraka Boys, right? And and that's what I saw like this June when we took some young people. Well, one young man to Tanzania, and that was we partnered with Wombworks Production, and one of the young men, he actually stayed in Tanzania for 6 months while attending school. So looking at what the global dynamics of transformation, but also what we have to do here for those that we may not necessarily be able to afford to get all the resources together. So it's going to take some sacrifice ultimately, and ultimately many of us are going to have to support our community institutions, our nation building, community building strategies. And this is where, organizing come in. We have to have more spooks, that can get resources for this type of work.
Right, right. Anybody have any more questions? Do you have a question, Jennifer or Kristal?
You're
Yeah.
muted.
Muted.
It always goes back to leadership and what we are leading young people to or toward.
Right.
And maybe we need to develop some type of app on the phone that deals with like the books that young males need to be reading, something that
Mm.
young people can access on their phones since they spend a lot of time on social media
Yes.
or
Yes.
something, so that you can get this type of information. Because I used to be an elementary school, middle school teacher. I had a fourth grader that I taught some how many years ago reach out to me just 2 days ago, call me on the phone and say, because of you, I just got an MBA, because when you taught me in
Mm.
fourth
Wow.
grade, you instilled something in me, that stayed with me, that he looked me up on LinkedIn to find me his fourth grade teacher,
Mm.
so that's why I keep bringing it back to the education and the leadership in education, and how to kind of bridge that technology gap, so that somehow we can bring these young people to information that's worthwhile,
Mm.
because they can get access to all kind of crazy stuff, but good information. You talking about
Mm.
building character, information
Mm.
that builds character, putting them on a leadership track to be a leader. Because I had given
Mm.
this young man most ambitious trophy, and he sent me a picture of a trophy gave him in fourth grade, because I said, you're very ambitious. You need to go into business or something. So he sent me, I have an MBA now, Miss Cravens, and here's the trophy you gave me in fourth grade. Okay.
Wow.
So
Beautiful.
some kind of way, and I'm not a technical person, but it has to be an app out here where
Mm.
you can listen to Amos Wilson, because you can tell people to go to YouTube, but we need to have a conscious app, that a lot of these, educators, not just Black History Month, put together some type of app, and parents can pay monthly or have access, and then these books are downloaded, or it can be a book on or something, so I'm not sure. You're a younger generation than me, so maybe you know how to connect the technology to
Mm.
them a little bit better, um, you
Mm.
know, so that the parents and people that are in front of these young people, we can kind of bring them to a consensus on some of the new themes that we need, because some kind of way we need to reset new themes for what young people need to be involved with, you know
Right.
and redefine, what is being Black, in America, redefine what that means to us now. It's not
Mm.
just sagging and, dressing a certain kind of way or listening to a certain type of music. It's the consciousness of being educated and having access to and having a global viewpoint. So that's why I just wanted to kind of, I don't, some kind of way, if we can connect the technology, somebody can come up with an app, and bring those books, those 100 books, that you talked
Mm.
about. I followed that same philosophy. But parents can't get children to read 5 books,
Mm.
so
Mm.
So some kind of way,
Yeah.
some of the tips that you put out here to the community, we need to everybody needs to get different populations to kind of buy into new level of consciousness for Black people going forward.
All right. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Chris, you have anything else you want to share? Or we're gonna just thank the brother. He's this is not gonna be the last time. There's gonna be other times we're gonna want you to come back.
Yeah.
And kind of explore some other things that you are doing. Um, I'm Kristal. I'm kind of partial to Baltimore for some reason. I wanted to move there. People think that Baltimore is there's some parts of Baltimore that are challenging. I grew up in Brooklyn, so to me it's all relative. Brooklyn got some bad parts. Brooklyn got some great parts. That's the same with Baltimore. Baltimore got some great parts. They got some average parts. They got some challenging parts. I've been in all of them, and the parts that are challenging are not as big as the parts that are doing good or doing well. So Baltimore gets a bad rap, but at the same time, thanks to brothers like you who are in the community, trying your best to work with it. Because I know when we did the rites of passage, it was successful, but those parents that were part of it, those children, they had parents that were supportive. And we reached out to the community because down the street, one part was doing well, the other part, they needed a lot of work. And we try to reach out to that community. And, you get a few. And then with the charter school was, you can't find no more conscious persons in terms of African history and African culture than Cecil Gray. And I know there was a stymie. I mean, it was. I've been to a lot of their activities. I've been to a whole lot of their activities, and it was just met by some challenging behaviors. I'll put it that way. And you all you can do is try your best, but it starts with them being babies. You got to start with developing a certain behavior when they're babies and toddlers and in pre-K, and that's when you can really effect a change in our community. We can get our children at that age. But anyway, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks to Kristal tapping into you. Kristal has a way of tapping into quite a few people in the community, and so now that you're with us, you're not going to be a stranger.
Right.
You're part of the community now, so we're part of yours.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're thankful. Right. And all right, well, let's give thanks. Let's just you want to close out, Kristal?
Sure. As we continue our work, we have to always remember that you are your ancestors. Within your DNA is locked and loaded all the answers, all the things that are available to us to then go to the next level. It's really up to us to actualize the promises that's rooted in this continent as well as the continent of Africa. It's part of who we are as a people, and we are always hopeful and visionaries in this work, and we'll never stop and will never end with us, and will continue on from generation to generation. And continue your work, Haki. Appreciate what you're doing, and we will definitely have you back. And I just thank you for all that you're doing.
That's right. Give thanks. Thank you.
Brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. And we like to thank our lone guest, Jennifer. You're muted.
I'm always gonna support, Dr. Kristal Empowerment Center, Brother Haki, and Haki. He's been
You're not gonna
connected
support me.
And I hadn't gotten to you, brother.
You ain't mentioned my name, so I
haven't finished. I was just saying that he's not a stranger to us. We've been knowing the brother for a long time. That's all I was about to
I'm
say.
just disappointed now. I'm leaving, Jennifer.
Yes, so definitely our Brooklyn brother that's in the house.
Thank you, brother Usher. Look forward to meeting you in person, my brother.
Yeah.
All right, see you later, brother.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a good night. Good night, everybody.
All right,
All right. Thank you.
You're right.
All right. Bye.